Hey, good morning again, everybody, and welcome to an episode of the Emotional Men Podcast. I'm Pete. I'm a licensed clinical therapist and PhD student, and Taylor is a licensed therapist out of Texas. And we're here to talk about
I'm Taylor.
things.
That's me.
Yeah,
Yes.
he's Taylor over there.
We talk about things. Yes.
Yeah,
Things.
talk about things. We don't talk about being emotional men. We just are. We talk about
That's
different
right.
things.
We cry 15 times a day. We look at beautiful things and weep silently into, I would say, our beards, but Pete doesn't have one.
Well, welcome to Thanks for Listening today. Today we're going to be talking about
Before we
the way
talk about how are you doing, Pete? What is this jumping straight into? We never jump straight into this. How are you doing?
Sorry, I got all excited about our topic today, but in order to make Taylor happy, I'm going to say I'm doing fine. So today we're going to talk about
In order to make me happy? To make me happy. What about our literally ones of listeners who are curious how Pete Kingsley's doing?
Oh yeah, since this week. Well, every
might be
week I
back
have
up
my
to 5.
slew of my slew of classes that I take at University of Tennessee Knoxville, and then I have homework from those classes, and statistics just killed me this week. I just didn't understand how to complete an ANCOVA. And
I don't even know what that is.
analysis of covariance.
See, this is why I stopped at the master's degree, Pete, because you're talking math, and math is bad. Except if your name is Kenneth. For the sake of
That's
Kenneth,
right.
my friend, who's
We
a
have
math teacher.
mathematicians listening who take exception to our comments about math. But
That's right. That
my
doesn't make
wife-
them right, by the way.
my wife, who happens to be a mathematician, she told me that she also disliked math until she decided that she was going to be good at math. And since then, I've decided that I'm going to like statistics, and I like what it does. I've decided to change my mindset about statistics. I even am thinking about getting a minor in statistics because I'm going to be good at it.
I mean,
Anyway.
self-deception's a powerful thing.
Absolutely. I'm going to use it to the full extent possible.
Yes. So you're going to like statistics. You just decided.
Yeah, I'm going to like statistics. In my undergrad, I got a C in statistics, but last term in statistics, I got an A minus.
Okay.
Cue the cheer.
Yay.
Thanks.
Yeah. When
Much
I was
rejoicing.
when I was in my undergrad, I failed the same math class, I think twice. On the third time, I barely skinned my teeth past it. And that was the class I needed to take before I could take statistics, before I could take behavioral health statistics. So I barely passed college algebra, went into statistics and killed it, and then went into behavioral health statistics and killed it. And I realized my problem with math is if I don't see the purpose for it, it was a shock to nobody who knows me, I can't do it. But if you tell me why it matters, like statistics has a point. We're trying to figure out a thing. Here's a real world application. Fantastic. What in the world does the not the Pythagorean theorem, what's that big stupid formula?
Quadratic formula.
Yeah, like what does that accomplish in real life that I will ever use? Nothing. So why would I care? But you want to talk about I've got a group of people who are acting in a certain way and I can predict statistically probable outcomes? Great. I'll do that all day.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I do like about statistics. I liked from the beginning was that it's obvious. What it was hard for me to switch gears. Sorry, I'm going into statistics, but that's not the topic of today. But today, I have to change gears in my mind from going to my clinical brain, which is this person sitting in front of me. How do I predict their behavior and what research can I use for this person right in front of me? To population, to a population, and say like we're using this measure that has been proven from previous research, and we're just going to assume that all their responses are valid. And take all those responses from hundreds of people and create assumptions from all that. And so the clinical brain will be like, well, what about that person? You know, how do we know that that one person isn't having just a bad day, or that one person is like reporting extremes on the measure? And in population research, it's like, it doesn't matter. We don't care about any of that. We're just taking tons of research and creating assumptions or creating implications, predictions.
You said something in that in there that I want to ask about. You said person sitting in front of me, how do I predict their behavior? Is that generally your approach? You try and predict behavior?
Oh, no, 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 no. I guess I shouldn't have said that. Not predict behavior. I guess it would have been like, um, it's not like I'm trying to tell the future, but if somebody is coming to me and they say, I've been happy ever since I gave away all of my bottle cap collection.
Oh,
Last week I gave away my
every
entire bottle cap
therapist in the
collection.
world just like clutch their pearls like, oh, that's
Exactly.
bad.
Exactly. And there's some predictive nature in that where you're like, oh, really? Tell
real
me
quick,
about that.
The reason for that is because that's highly indicative of suicidal planning.
Yes. Yes, exactly. And we know that because of these huge population research that was done.
Yeah, science and math, blah, blah.
Signs and signs. So it's not that like I look at this person and be like, I see that you're tapping your right knee with your index finger. I'm guessing that you're going to become aggressive or something. It's not that in the moment. It's just overarching predictions.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense to me. What are we talking about today, Pete, now that I've forced you to tell the world how you're doing? By the way, I'm doing fine. Thank you so much for asking.
Yeah. Well, today we're going to... Nothing but love here. Nothing but love.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, emotional men. That means
legitimately, we love each other very, very much. And the way that men show affection is they just give each other so much garbage.
Yeah, exactly. Who else you can insult except your friends? I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
At least to their face.
Yeah.
Today, well, it was an interesting topic. I don't know who came up with the idea, but this idea, the concept of talking about weaponizing therapy, and either it was you or me, but either way, the idea that you take the concepts you learn in therapy and you apply them incorrectly to yourself in bad context, or maybe worse, you start applying them to everyone else because of what you learned in therapy.
Yeah, I think I think this came out of a conversation that we had. It might have, if not, I'll take full credit because I'm a very generous person like that.
Do it.
But I think the idea is that people will take concepts like you're gaslighting me, or you're being toxic, this is traumatizing, and they'll just kind of like use it as a way to make people do what they want or to avoid having to face responsibility, which is bad. I think objectively bad, not okay. Because I think it kind of runs counter to what the point of therapy is, right? Therapy is not about keeping yourself free from discomfort. And I think that's a big misconception people kind of have. Therapy is a deeply uncomfortable process at times. And if you're using therapy to not have to be uncomfortable, as opposed to process your discomfort in a healthy way, you're probably doing it wrong.
You said evade responsibility. You said avoid responsibility. When you go to therapy and you learn that, well, I want to get your thoughts about avoiding responsibility, because I didn't think about this until I read a study for 2025 from Spain. And I'll just read the quote that I have, and then I'll highlight the points. Therapy speak is susceptible to the erosion of meaning and relevance of psychotherapy terms, pathologizing, and the risk of self-diagnosis. Regarding its ethical concerns, therapy speak might be used to discredit individuals, evade responsibility, and even signal social status by taking an objective stance. Weaponization of therapy speak exploits the authority and credibility excesses of medical
Is that word
evidence.
a little too big there for you? It's
epistemic.
Epistemic.
Yeah, okay, so Taylor can see the quote that I'm reading, and
we both mispronounced the word too.
They get the point. The point is the erosion of meaning. It erodes the meaning of what the therapist just said to you if you take it and start using it around. It discredits individuals. It evades responsibility and signals your social status. And weaponizing it means you take it and you're basically have the backing of authority and credibility of medical evidence in your argument, whatever argument you're using. You use some therapy term and people are like, oh, well, that's medical, and that has this huge vast array of research behind it, therefore you're right. It's kind of like in the South, people at the end say, bless your heart. They'll insult you to your face. Like, you need
Bless
to lose a few pounds, bless your heart.
Bless
like,
your heart. Or calling you a sweet spirit, like you're ugly. You're such a sweet spirit there. Bless your heart. You're an ugly, go screw yourself. Yeah.
I have the mass of religion and charity and love all behind me in my comment. Bless your heart.
That's right. You can't pick it apart because I have authority, and that's a really solid point. And it goes both ways too. Like I've certainly have seen people who have used it, and like you're gaslighting me, as we talked about with Latina last week. No, we're not, or 2 weeks ago, I guess. We're not gaslighting. That's not how this works. I think that people have certainly used this against me when I get mad, like, you're a therapist, you shouldn't be upset. That's not how this works at all. You do not get to try and throw therapy in my face, you goober pants. I'm allowed to be angry. I'm allowed to be upset. I don't need your permission, and that's a problem.
It also goes the other way. If somebody doesn't want to deal with something, then they can use their diagnosis, or they use like
yes.
Then that's. I was going to ask you what evading or avoiding responsibility means. When I see it in clinical work, it's usually like, he knows I'm ADHD. Why would he ask me that? Why would he ask me to do that? He knows I'm ADHD, and it's like, well, you're kind of hiding behind your diagnosis. He asked you to clean the kitchen. Like,
Yeah.
that's not a big deal, but you're making, like, ADHD makes it more difficult. That is true. But if you're not even willing to approach it because you're hiding
they're
behind
taking the thing you're asking is now your fault. How dare you ask me that? The fact that it's not getting done isn't on me because I have ADHD. You should know better than to ask me, a person with ADHD, to do this. That's evading responsibility. And we kind of talked about that in the anxiety episode of how people try and use their diagnosis. I think we have an episode planned for some future date where we talk about the danger of making your diagnosis your personality. But this is exactly what you're talking about. I don't have to do this, and it's your fault that it's not getting done. That's
hiding.
Weaponized therapy.
Yeah, and you're weaponizing your own therapy. People weaponize. I didn't think about this, but weaponizing your therapy as a defense, like a shield. Other people can weaponize by therapists against their clients, people against people. When you're in therapy and the therapist weaponizes therapy against you.
Yeah, what does that mean? You wrote that, and I was very confused.
Oh, yeah. I've shown progress in like various ways, and you've like say that you've adjusted to this thing, or not adjusted, but you're like managing your symptoms this way, and you've come to a consensus with your therapist and be like, okay, this has been worked on. Is there anything else you want to work on, or are we good to graduate from therapy? Sometimes the client will be like, no, you know what? I think I'm good. That was the main problem I came to talk to you about. And sometimes the client will say, well, actually, like one client I had who was struggling with grief for his parents, and then his grief subsided, and we talked about grief, and he could graduate, and then he had a suicide attempt because he'd been struggling with depression, just generalized depression about everything in his life. And even though grief is discrete, and we measured it and like treated it, and he talked about his parents openly, and his grief was okay, it was his depression. So we had to transfer him to another therapist. What would be bad is if the client said, no, I think this thing is resolved. I'm okay not talking about this anymore, not because it's painful, but because I think we've talked about it ad nauseum. And the therapist goes, actually,
that sounds like avoidance.
Yeah, actually, that sounds like avoidance. I think we should talk about it more. And you're like, okay, if you think so, and then it's ad nauseum, you're like, it doesn't bother me. It's I don't talk about it over dinner, but I don't think we need to work on that anymore. And the therapist goes, no, it's a huge problem. It's like that movie with Jack Nicholson and Adam Sandler, the anger management.
It's interesting. As you're talking, I was thinking about a couple things. One of them was a therapist I had, Chris Mosman. I mentioned him. He was amazing. We were talking about my bad experiences with, excuse me, talking about my bad experiences with work and all this stuff. And I met with him for probably a year and a half. And it was becoming clear to me that I was like, oh, I don't actually need this anymore. And it was time to be done. Oh, and I felt it was time to be done. I said, all right, hey, Chris, I think we can probably end. This is my last one. And he went, oh, I mean, you know, too, that like there's a lot of work still to be done about these other things you keep bringing up. I said, I don't think I need to, though. And he went, okay. And that is the correct answer.
Yeah, exactly. That's okay.
Yeah, therapists are allowed to push back, first and foremost. If I have a client who's like, I think I'm done, I'm like, you were crying 2 minutes ago because the thought of a dog frolicking through a field of flowers made you so overwhelmed you couldn't function. We're not done. But if they decide they still want to quit, we're not
There's
quit.
a balance between like challenging as a therapist, like challenging the thoughts and the proclamations of your client, and also accepting what they say. And it's really hard balance to reach. And clients, you can expect therapists to push back on what you say, even if it's just a gentle pushback. Like, are you sure? And they came to you for a reason. It's kind of the paradox. Is there a problem? Well, they came to me, so there must be. Well, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. Therapists are allowed to push back, and clients are the ones who make the final decision about if they're coming to therapy or not the therapist. So I guess when you say it that way, that makes sense. You definitely don't want a therapist who's like, well, you're kind of showing some bipolar tendencies, so I think maybe you should.
We have a lot of work to do. You're like, yeah, I know I have a lot of work to do. That's my life. That's what life is, but I don't need to be here to do it.
Exactly, right? Therapy is not this magical catch-all that fixes everything. And sometimes I do wish this is like one of the dangers of people putting therapists on pedestals is like, we're not magicians or sorcerers who wave a magic wand and like your life is better. There are people who need a lot of therapy. There are people who don't. And sometimes people are just done with therapy, and that's good. That's the goal. The goal is to work ourselves out of a job.
And the people who need a lot of therapy also have to be the people who are willing to work. And sometimes those two things don't match up. So someone comes to you and they're crying 2 seconds and like, yeah, but I'm not coming back. You're like, oh, I'm telling you, you will need to come back. And they're like, nah, I'm not going to come back. I'm like, all right. Like, what am I going to do? Like, force you to come?
Exactly. It's an invitation. If I'm here, if you want to keep going, and if you don't, I understand. But I'm here if you decide later that you want to come back. And in the meantime, what a privilege it's been to chat. All the best.
And inversely, it goes the other way. When we're talking about weaponizing therapy, it was interesting in the study, they talked about as an indicator of social status, people who don't need therapy and are willing to do the work. People who don't need therapy and willing to do the work could use it as a marker of social status, as they say something like, oh, no, I'm good. I have a therapist.
Oh, dude, good. Yeah.
Or like they bring their little white dog in their purse to, no offense to people with little white dogs.
Offense. No, please.
No offense.
I intend offense. People who, little side rant here. I cannot stand when people have a pet. And this is my emotional support animal. Do you know what it takes to be an emotional support animal? To have that animal been through the training? Have they been certified? Are they up to date on everything? Have they handled big emotion moments well? If you have an emotional reaction, do they come to you? Do they comfort you? Have they been trained to react in these certain situations? It's a chicken. It is not an emotional support animal. Yeah. Stop bringing your quote unquote emotional support animals onto airplanes just because you don't have to pay for it to go sit in the steerage with the rest of the animals. It is a pet. It is not trained.
Yeah, emotional support animal, ESA. I realized early on in my career, I had written a few letters saying like, yeah, this is an emotional support animal for some clients. And then my insurance, my liability insurance as a therapist came out with a special issue of something that's like, if you authorize emotional support animals and then this happens, you are opening yourself up for liability and we have limited ways to help you. I was like, ooh, so you want a Doberman to be your emotional support animal and it attacks a guy in your backyard. I could get pulled into that as a therapist.
Yep.
I could get pulled into that litigation and my insurance will say, why did you write that letter? So,
yep. And that's like almost more literally weaponized therapy.
Yeah, exactly. Weaponizing.
My pit bull attacked a small child, but it's my emotional support pit bull. And this, just so we're very clear, animals can be emotional support animals, but there is an actual process. And like when you ask someone to write a letter guaranteeing or certifying something as an emotional support animal, there are legal requirements to that. And if you have not met those legal requirements and you just have a letter from a therapist who thinks you're going through a rough time, they have not met the legal requirements and you are breaking the law. I feel very strongly about this in case you can't tell.
Yeah, it's hard. It can be a sticking
Can't wait for the comments on that one.
Well, hopefully they made it this far. But yeah. I mean, if they have...
What? We got a troll.
Oh, that's right.
We got a troll. Sorry, I just should have started with
this
that.
Is worth the segue. Sorry, I had a point, but go for it.
Yes, we got a troll. I posted a thing on our Instagram page, and an account in German, some German account, replied with 2 swear words, neither of which made any sense in the context of the video. One was a racial slur, and one was a feminine slur. And it was Pete talking, who is neither a not white person nor a female. And I loved it so much that I had to like it. I liked the comment.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Well, if the person actually watched the podcast, they knew they were doing us a favor.
That's true. It was a real gift. But like, I went to their account just to see what exactly their account was.
You went into their cave under the bridge.
I did. And let's see here. Here's their bio: letting thoughts flow, discover the ways inward, plant leaf, sunlight, heart.
Oh,
I love it. Anyway, I'm so sorry for the derailment, but
No, that's
we
all
got
right.
a troll.
Yeah, lives under the bridge.
Yes.
I
It's a German bridge, a very well constructed German bridge.
Maybe, well, one day we're going to get a troll from a real account. I think that's the next step. We get a troll from an actual account that has like, it's been on.
In 2 weeks, you and I are going to be on here like, there's someone outside my house. I don't want a troll anymore.
You want a real person, B? I'm here. Yeah. All right. What were we insulting at the time? Oh, emotional support animals.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're basically talking about little white dogs brought in purses that were like, this is my emotional support animal. And that can be a sticking point for the rapport with your client. So you have to say, like, I can't. Not just because of the insurance thing, but because this dog is not qualified to be an emotional support animal.
I feel like there's a really important caveat here that we got to throw in. And that is, there's nothing wrong with having an animal that you love and that you take with you places. Just own that it's not an emotional support animal. It's an animal that you love.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
and if your
fine.
apartment doesn't allow for an animal unless it's certified by somebody or other.
Oh my
I'm sorry.
I hate when people are like, I can't have my dog. Can you, in my apartment, unless I have an ESA certification, can you write me a letter? No, that's illegal. That challenges my license. No.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Don't move into apartments knowing you were breaking the law. There's a thought.
If you then approved an ESA as a type of weaponizing therapy, and somebody said, just go to Taylor. Taylor will fix you right up. You run into a stone wall with Pete. Pete said, no, just go to Taylor. He'll write you a letter. That's fine.
And it happens.
Yeah. And it happens not only with emotional support animals, it happens with treatment as well.
Mm-hmm.
People come to treatment and they say, oh my gosh, Taylor said that one thing. Taylor said, have you looked at this upside down? And it just opened up my brain looking at it upside down, this triangle we turned on its head. And now I'm looking at the triangle upside down. It's actually a fan or something, something profound to them. And then they come home and they're like,
oh, yeah.
Hey,
I mean, there's an
it
amazing cartoon that I showed Pete before this. He's referencing. There's a guy named Will McPhail who is a cartoonist for the New Yorker. And for my money, the best New Yorker cartoonist there is. Now, I don't read the New Yorker a ton, but I do love Will McPhail. He's written a couple books. Anyway, the point is, he has a cartoon where there's a guy sitting on a couch, and it's clearly a therapist's office. There's like a degree on the wall. And the man has a triangle-shaped hole in his chest. And the therapist pulls out a triangle and gives it to him. And then it shows him with the hole filled in. He's like, and then the last panel is him throwing triangles at people who have like a star-shaped hole or a circle or a square. And like that's kind of weaponized therapy where it's like, it worked for me, so it's got to be the answer for everybody. Mm-hmm. No, that's not how this works. If you want to be douchey about it, every therapist session is bespoke to your needs.
Every therapist session is bespoke to your needs. That's right. We kind of touch on
bespoke solutions.
Meaning handmade, made to tailor. Oh, Taylor.
Tailor-made.
Tailor-made. Not every therapy model is tailor-made. Sometimes it's Pete-made.
That's true.
It kind of touches on the medical model, which has been somewhat troublesome for the mental health community because the medical model deals with objectified health. Like the example I used with Taylor was, if you break your leg, you have research done on how bones knit. And you'll have a practitioner who is somewhat knowledgeable in how to fix bones, and he'll put your bone in a splint because he knows that bones can knit. Mm-hmm. Now, the client or the patient at that point has very little to say about getting his leg fixed. He just sits on the table. In fact, he could be unconscious. And if a guy who's even a half-trained medic like me in the military, I'm like, I know how to splint, and I splint. I'm not a doctor. So,
it's a mechanics issue, right?
It's a mechanics issue. In therapy, we have there was another article written in 2018, which I thought was beautiful. It talked about the triad of evidence-based practice. In therapy, it is not evidence-based practice like a medical model, where we say this works and therefore use it on everybody. In mental health,
CBT.
Yeah, cough. Yeah. Every manualized therapy. One of my favorite researchers had something to say about manualized therapy turning you rigid. Mm-hmm. But when Taylor says there's a bespoke method to therapy, he's talking about this triad of evidence-based practice. We have the research, which is foundational, the bottom of the triangle. And on the right side, we have the expertise of the therapist. And research has shown through literature for a long time the number one variable in determining therapeutic outcomes is the relationship with the therapist.
Mm-hmm.
I've said that over and over. I'll say it again. The number one variable in determining therapeutic outcomes is the relationship with the therapist.
Yep.
Their expertise, their empathy, their relatableness, and their professionalism.
Mm-hmm.
So
and the important thing in that too is like I have people that I work like gangbusters with, and I have people who come into my office with the exact same issues as an overarching theme who could not work worse with me if they tried, or I couldn't work worse with them because it's just like the relationship. It's just oil and water. It doesn't mix, and that's not bad. It just I'm not that person because the relationship factor is not going to be what it needs to be for growth to take place. That's okay.
Absolutely. We've hit on this the need for therapists not only to be good at their jobs, but also to be relatable. And that's not a fault on the therapist, really, or the person. It's just, when you walk in, do you like it that they stand up and say, "Hey, what's up?" and shake your hand? Or would you prefer them to say, "Good morning, Mr. McCary," and shake your hand? Like that kind of thing.
Absolutely.
It's a very different thing.
I imagine there may be some potential therapist out here who's like, "Oh, I'm really bad at making friends with people. I'm really bad at this, that, or the other with people. And so I can't be a good therapist. The relationship will be hard." To which I say that is not true, because when you're in a therapy, excuse me, when you're in a therapy situation, what you're doing is leveraging your other things, right? Your education, your capacity. And for every therapist, there's a client, and for every client, there's a therapist. And so if you're a very dry, here are the numbers, here's how we're doing this, I can guarantee you somewhere out there is a therapy client who will like drink that up and say, because of who you are, save me. Well, save me is a strong word, but you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And any therapist worth their salt knows that if a client says, "This just isn't working for me," they'll be like, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, but let me help you refer to somebody I think would match you better."
Yeah.
That's the professional bit. The fourth one out of a therapist. You want them to be professional, which is like, me, what? You don't like me?
Yeah. This triangle suddenly looks very boxy.
No. Yeah, exactly. So the second part of it, so you have the research underneath in this triangle. The right side of the triangle is the expertise of the therapist, including their professionalism. So the therapist part.
Oh, there we go.
And the left side of the triangle is the client themselves. We talked about the client's willingness to do the work. The client's, there's a lot of aspects, I think, of the client themselves that allow for an evidence-based practice to work. And we're talking about the triangle of evidence-based practice, which is like manualized CBT, manualized EMDR. It has to match those three things. So there are parts of the client that need to work in order for the evidence-based practice you're working to work with them.
Yeah.
Now, if it doesn't, and you're forcing it down their throat, that's weaponizing it.
Yes. Evidence-based does not mean physics model. Evidence-based means, statistically speaking, we can assume the following things will be helpful. But I tell this to people too, and this is why we're kind of going on a tangent here, but why it's important to consider that every person has an individual response. If I get 10 people in a row and I slap 10 people in the face as hard as I can only guarantee I'm going to get 10 different reactions. And the reaction might be, maybe they'll laugh. Maybe they'll just start crying. Maybe they'll be so shocked they don't know what to do. Maybe they'll punch me. Maybe they'll kick me. Maybe they'll call the police. Maybe they'll smile and say, "Thank you, that was great," and then go out and file a complaint against my license. I can't guarantee a reaction because the vast universe that is another person has too many variables to safely predict exactly what's going to happen. And this is why this model doesn't work with people, because that's just
the physics model, the medical model. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the vast universe.
Exactly. It's not you boil water at 100 degrees Celsius. We're going to put fire here, and at some point the water will start to bubble, probably.
Yeah. If it's water.
If it's water. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. I loved what you had said in a previous episode about the face of the other calls to you. And then just now you said the universe that is the other. The context of a whole life behind someone's eyes is treatable, but it has to be recognized. I mean, their understanding, their experiences, all have to be treated. And when you're tending a broken leg, you don't have to worry about any of that.
Yeah, exactly. There's no question about the implications of how it feels to have your leg treated, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Because like if you're talking to someone about depression and they come from a very open, they're open mental health, that's a quick, easy well, not quick and easy, but it's an easier to enter into conversation than somebody who comes from a family where talking about emotions is a weakness and you're bad for doing it.
Mm-hmm.
These are important considerations that change the course of treatment.
Well, I've come in contact with people who have been open with their mental health, and it has changed the course of my perception. Even before I was looking into doing social work, I was trying to think of what I could go back to school for, and therapy always kind of appealed to me. But I had this belief that, quote, soft sciences were less than.
Mm-hmm.
They were like not as good as biology and physics. So I got an undergrad in biology, and then I was just really interested in behavior, but it was considered a soft science. I had a hard time dealing with it. One of my last group commanders, when I was a maintenance officer, though, would talk about in staff meetings. Oh, I can't do that at that time. I have my therapy session at mental health on that time.
Mm-hmm.
And he'd been through a divorce, and he was people knew about his divorce. Of course, he didn't mention that in staff meetings, but he would say, "I have my mental health appointment at that time," which was huge for a maintenance meeting.
Mm-hmm.
For maintenance is notoriously stoic and cold. So, and he would talk about it in his all calls when he has huge calls. He'd be like, "Go to mental health. I go to mental health. I go to mental health twice a month or something."
Did he
like
always
that.
say mental health? He didn't say therapy?
Well, that's in the military. The mental health office is just called mental health. So
Okay.
you go to the mental office. You're going to mental health. That's what it was.
Gotcha.
So above the door in the hospital, it says mental health. That's a bunch of offices. So you go to mental health. And since coming in contact with that commander and having my mind kind of changed, like, you can talk about this openly. And why would you want to if it's a soft science? Why not just find the one answer that's good for everybody? And I have to start thinking about that. And then since then, I listed off a few people who have been notoriously like open about their mental health struggles. Dwayne Johnson, he talked about his depression. He said he was crying nearly every day for 15 years before he got help. He lost 15 friends to suicide and addictions. He's like, I've lost exactly 15 friends, which to me is like, wow, he counted.
That's a lot of friends.
Yeah. And he talked about the pressure of being a public figure, especially in Hollywood. He's been open about his depression. Dan Reynolds.
Just setting aside like what it is to be a professional wrestler and like living with that kind of pain and like making money off of physical pain. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The pressure of like going out there and doing it again one more day. Oh my gosh. That'd be really hard. Dan Reynolds, the Imagine Dragons lead singer, there are many short videos of him at the end of a set will just stand up and say something about mental health. And say, it doesn't make you weak, go get help. I saw a picture of him holding up a sheet that had scribbled on it, "Your life is always worth living."
Mm-hmm.
And then he'll just lift that up and then they go on with their music. But it's like, he just puts a plug in for mental health using the platform that he has. And that type of normalization of therapy really helps. And of course you have to make sure that it doesn't go too far of like, you need to go to therapy, because then that's forcing and that's making assumptions.
Yeah, but like talking about it like that is what takes the weaponization of it away, where this isn't a weapon, this is a tool you can access.
Yes, it's a tool. That's exactly right. And it's like,
you're not a tool for doing it.
You're not a tool for doing it. No, I don't know why the tool is so embarrassing why it seems like a weakness for so many people. Because it's nothing like getting a broken leg fixed. It's totally, it's not objective like that. I broke my leg and you have a story. It's like, I went to mental health. Why? Because I got sad. Like, why? What? I mean, maybe it's because it begs an answer.
Yeah, there's some vulnerability in telling people, and maybe this is therapy being weaponized as a way to prevent against. Maybe it's a way of people preventing vulnerability for themselves. Like, I do go to therapy, but that makes me uncomfortable. So I'll just be like, whatever, you don't get to talk to me about this because I don't know why I'm suddenly a Valley girl. Like, whatever. Oh my goodness. To be fair, I grew up in Los Angeles in the 80s and 90s. So this is me speaking my culture.
Yeah. You're just quoting Sally Jane from high school.
Yeah, that's all right. Totally. Bruh.
Mm-hmm.
But this is, it's kind of a way of protecting yourself. And maybe this is why people weaponize it. It's a way of avoiding any kind of vulnerability. The problem is when you use it to avoid responsibility for that vulnerability and you put it onto other people, which kind of, if you're talking to someone, they start being all super weaponized about their therapy and their therapy language. How do you handle it? The way that you handle it, I think, is first and foremost, remember that good therapy doesn't mean that there's no discomfort. So if a person is like, well, yeah, you're being traumatic to me, you're being whatever. And I think maybe I'm kind of going all over the place with this. I think stereotypically a lot of men hear what I'm saying and go, that's why I don't go to therapy, because it sounds so weak to be like, well, you're traumatizing me, so let's stop it. That means the person who's talking to you is doing it wrong. They're using their therapy in the way it's a cudgel being used to beat you over the head. That's not what it should be. Good therapy does not mean, good therapy doesn't mean no discomfort. Good therapy means the discomfort exists as part of a conversation. And if you are using therapy to cut the conversation off, you are not engaging in good therapy. Even if the therapist you have is engaging in good therapy, if you go outside of the therapeutic room and you're using it to shut down conversation, you are failing at therapy a little bit and should probably course correct.
Talking about shutting down the conversation, the problem is that we as therapists always think we're right, and the people as clients also think that they're right a lot of the time.
I hope we don't think we're right. You don't strike me as the kind of therapist who's like, well, I'm right and you are wrong.
Well, if I am, like, I had a client who had narcissistic personality disorder, and I was unsure.
You leave me out of this, Pete.
And I was unsure. I really was not sure. So we sent him to a psychologist who was down the hall, and he ran a battery of tests. And sure enough, he came back like very high. And in fact, we said, like, here are the criteria for this thing. Have you had this? And he was like, yeah. And then we said, okay, that means you shouldn't be in the military. And he was like, whoa. Actually.
Oh yeah, the avoidant guy.
Yes. Not narcissistic, avoidant. We knew, I believed wholeheartedly that I was correct. And in this diagnosis. Now, objectively, and you look at this, I was unsure. I went in, got it tested. It came back really positive. You could say yes. But if you were that guy, and I have to, as a therapist, put myself somewhat in his shoes of that guy, his frustration, his anger at me, his powerlessness in the system, I understand all that. Was I weaponizing therapy at that point? He was denying, as immediately when we told him the consequences of this diagnosis, he denied everything. And tried to prove to me with every session thereafter that he was doing things uncharacteristic of that diagnosis. Mm-hmm. He was making tons of friends. He was going out every weekend. He was calling his mom and talking about hard things, like every session. And I had to say, I'm sorry, like I still think I'm right. So there is a power dynamic between a therapist and the client when there is a point where in this case, I felt anyway, he probably felt like I was weaponizing therapy.
I literally was just thinking, like, that's somebody who views therapy as a weapon being used against them.
Yeah,
for sure. Which is a bummer. And I think, so when you said, the therapist is right, I was like immediately picturing, no, you're definitely bipolar. I just got sad because my dog died. Definitely a bipolar reaction. But you're not talking about that. You're talking about, I have an obligation to maintain a set of a structure. And according to the rules I have to operate within, you do not meet the qualifications to be part of the organization based on the rules that I did not set. I think that's an important consideration.
So should we consider that therapy is actually a weapon? It is a huge tool like a hammer. And should we at least give it the respect of being the potential of being a weapon, even properly used? I didn't think about this, but like I weaponized this therapy against this airman and he got separated from the Air Force. And I can't say that like therapy didn't do that. I couldn't say therapy is not a hammer. It was.
I mean, certainly I don't think any therapist would say that therapy is weightless or that it can't be used. I mean, like, we have real power. I could go to somebody I didn't like if I wanted to. I would never do this. But in theory, I could put an involuntary psych hold on somebody, literally anybody, And by virtue of my license, I could put them in a hospital for 72 hours.
Yep.
And like studies have shown, there's a very famous article that a newspaper put in where a person who did not have mental health issues checked themselves into a mental health hospital and then tried to get out by being sane, and they could not get out because nobody believed them. Like, that's
There's
power.
a team of people. Yeah.
Yeah, this is real power.
So therapy is not benign.
No.
So therapy is not benign. And I think what makes it a little safer than being a weapon, in my case, the military, was he couldn't get away from it. He really couldn't, like, leave. I report it, and consequences fall down the hill. But I also have had, in my previous less experienced practice, if you'll forgive me, I have, well, then I won't tell you.
Good. So the next thing we're going to talk about today.
I moved too fast. I went too hard. I made assumptions. I made observations that were perhaps cruel but productive. I meant them to be productive, but they might have been too cruel for the person at the time. And because I was trying to move forward with the therapy when I should have been listening more.
Yeah.
And it was painful. It was so painful she didn't come back. And so I realized that therapy is not benign. It is a hammer. I did not weaponize. I didn't call her work and like tell people. I didn't say like, you need therapy, you need to come back. I, made contact and said, hey, we have appointments open if you want to. And she was like, no, just not right now. And just didn't come back. And I know it was because of that one painful session we had. So it wasn't, I think weaponizing is different than being weightless, as you said. Therapy is not weightless. It's not benign. It is a big, solid, heavy hammer. And you can get bits and pieces of that hammer and take it out with you out of therapy. But man, it takes somebody who knows, how to wield a hammer. There are even different types of hammers.
Absolutely. Were you using a rubber mallet? Or were you using a sledgehammer? Or were you using a tiny little chisel with a little flat end ball pen at the end?
Yeah,
there's lots of different considerations. And I think that it's, it's kind of like cars are they're 1 ton missiles. You're driving a 1 ton missile around. It's an important way to think about it sometimes because it has real weight and real danger to it. Therapy has weight. Therapy can be really bad. I tell people all the time, and I literally say this in session to almost every client, I have a master's degree in emotional manipulation. I need to own that because I have to own the power dynamic. I could really screw a person up. I had a conversation with someone on Monday who's like, I could, if I really wanted to, and this is for this client, this was an appropriate thing to say, just so we're clear. But I was like, if I really wanted to, give me a couple months, I could make you suicidal. He's like, no, you couldn't. I said, I really could. But I need you to understand that I have power, and I need you to understand that you have power. And how we use our power and how we recognize it is crucial in the conversations we have because there is weight that we both carry. And I tell this to clients too, like, you could destroy my life, especially when I had an office. If someone came into my office and said that I assaulted them, that's my entire career is gone. There's no way I can disprove it. It's just over. They have power over me. I have to acknowledge that power. They have to acknowledge the power I have. And if neither of us can acknowledge equally the power the other person brings into the room, then that's not going to work. And so like weaponizing therapy, as an example, is taking that power too far. I'm going to use the power I have, whether in the therapeutic room or outside of the therapeutic room, I'm just going to swing the hammer around, and whatever gets hit, but I'm going to make what I want with the hammer.
Could be a reaction to people feeling disenfranchised. Like after the Civil War, Southern plantation owners became highly persecuted and a lot of stuff taken away from them. They formed the Ku Klux Klan. Black members formed Black Panthers.
Also, they were super racist. It was just, and you took our land. Yeah, like we gotta attach the racism to the Ku Klux Klan for that to be ineffective.
Yeah. I do attribute, though, a lot of it was they had this huge amount of power that is now vacuumed out. So even though they were racist and horrible people, it was still, they felt this loss of power. So if you take a client and you come in and you say, okay, you lay on the couch and I will sit here with my notepad and I have all the power and you will tell me everything. There could be some, and the vacuum of power that they feel coming to your office, they may just not come back, or they'll use what they learned there as a weapon to feel more powerful other places.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
So I wanted you mentioned, how do you deal with somebody who tries to weaponize therapy speak?
Hmm.
You recognize that therapy is uncomfortable, but when somebody tells you you need a therapist, I think that the weight of how they say it, the human that is saying it to me and the way that they say it makes that comment so different in different ways. I feel like that's like a theatrical practice. Like, I want you to say you need a therapist 10 different times, 10 different ways, and you could probably do it in like a
Yeah.
dramatic practice. Now, if somebody says it dismissively, that is definitely weaponizing. That's dismissing your discomfort, whatever you want to talk about. Dude, you need a therapist, and I'm not it. Like, that's
Yeah.
basically stop talking to me.
There is a problem where somebody will say, I'm uncomfortable with your emotions. You need to go see, that's what they're saying. You should go see a therapist because your emotions are too big. What they're really saying is, I'm uncomfortable handling your emotions. I don't want to deal with them. You need to do the work so that I don't have to. Don't like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you saying you need to go to therapy versus you probably need a therapist, dude. Like, I'm not equipped. Yeah, one of the
Yeah.
reasons I got into therapy was because I was ill-equipped when I was dealing with someone with huge, big emotions, and I want to reach out. I had this huge swell of like caring for this person, and I had nothing. And I was like, I think you need help. And I was like, man, I wish I knew what to say in that situation. I didn't.
Yeah, you need more than I can give. And that is a vulnerable thing to say too. Yeah, absolutely. And then you've got people who are like, stop it. You need to go to therapy, because that's that. I don't want to make it sound like I'm making fun of like people who are having an emotional reaction. In my mind, that's like someone yelling at, and you did this and you do that. And like this person counting, please see somebody to deal with your anger because this is scaring me. That's another way that people would say that in this exercise.
We've mentioned, and I know gaslighting is this huge, is in the American lexicon, like gaslighting. I have never seen the movie where it came from, but you have, I think.
Yeah, I mean, gaslighting specifically refers to, there's a character in the movie who they had gaslight lamps, and he keeps turning down the gas, and so his wife's like, it's getting darker in here, and he's like, no, it's not. You're going blind.
Oh my gosh.
And that's gaslighting, means that you're lying about something to make someone believe something that isn't true, so you can have power over them. Good movie.
That is pretty good. And when you say you're gaslighting me is often used as a weaponized therapeutic phrase, as like, stop saying hard things to me, or stop challenging what I'm thinking. Stop challenging me. You're gaslighting me.
Yeah.
Or like, didn't you drive the car last? You should have gotten gas. No, you drove the car last. No, yesterday you drove. Stop gaslighting me. You drove the car last. Like, oh, okay. Like, no. Gaslighting as a therapeutic term is actually a very deliberate way of manipulating, and it comes with like personal insults. It's not just one of you being incorrect about something, and trauma as well. So even at my level with students at a PhD, and forgive me if anybody who's listening to this, but in my classes, people will say like, I grew up with little t trauma of well, I don't want to give away whoever it was, but anyway, they say the word trauma as if it were like childhood is just that way. That was the phrase that they used, like, grow up with the trauma of like living in North Carolina. And I'm like, what? And studying trauma, they also have this phrase of like big T trauma and little t trauma, meaning a big T trauma, you have an index trauma that actually have PTSD from, and little t traumas that like nobody escapes childhood unscathed, that type of little t trauma. But to say this is traumatizing me actually has clinical significance. And so me as a trauma researcher, when I hear someone saying trauma, I have to in my mind think, okay, you mean little t trauma. Why does everyone say trauma? Why don't you just say another word? Why is everyone saying trauma all the time for everything? It just gets me.
Could you do me a favor? And this is maybe an episode we can do later in more depth, but will you define trauma for me?
Oh man. So there's the it's more like defining the symptoms of being traumatized. So the DSM has so the answer to the question is no, I can't.
Can I?
Okay,
I'll tell you what I think while you look up yours. I'll tell you what I kind of tell people what trauma is. And you are studying this, so you can tell me if I'm right or wrong. Though I do feel confident in my rightness because I'm a therapist, bitch.
You're a therapist, yeah.
I think that trauma is something that challenges your understanding of yourself. It takes something away from you. So, like, it can be traumatizing if someone close to you dies suddenly because what is taken from you is the world is a safe place where I am free from bad things happening to people I love. That's traumatic. If I'm in a car accident that I'm not expecting, it's traumatic because I thought I was safe in a car, but the reality is another missile can hit my missile and then I could die. Or I watch somebody I know get murdered. Or like me, like I talked about last time, where the guy came in and tried to murder somebody. The trauma of that was, I'm safe at work. That was taken from me. I now know that bad things can happen at work unexpectedly. The traumatizing thing changed my understanding of myself and my place in the world, and that's what makes it trauma. If you're walking on the street with a friend and they say, that shirt is not a good fit on you, to say, hey, dude, you're traumatizing me. You don't get to say that to me. That's not really trauma because they're not changing your understanding of your safety in the world.
Yeah, that's just cruel.
Yeah, they're just being a dick.
Yeah, and so instead of saying, stop traumatizing me.
Even then, actually, I'm going to push back on that. It's not necessarily being a dick to tell someone they don't look good in what they're wearing, unless you're like, hey, man, you're stupid, fat, and ugly, and that shirt proves it. That's you being a dick. But like if Pete and I were talking and I was like, let's say he was wearing a shirt. Pete looks fantastic right now, by the way. But if Pete was wearing something that wasn't flattering and I was like, oh, Pete, that shirt is not actually doing you any favors. That's just me telling an honest thing to a friend.
I'm happy to hear you say that. Stoicism for the win. Just if you say something true, it doesn't have to be cruel.
Yes.
But if you put a value statement to it, like, you're a horrible person because you're wearing that shirt. I knew you were a skank. That's
gosh.
Yeah, no. So the reason I took so much time when you asked me a very rudimentary question of what trauma is, and everyone listening goes, oh, he's a trauma researcher, and he took 30 seconds of dead air to look up what it means.
Killing it.
Yeah. So there's what we talked about, the physics or the medical model, which is like very definite, discriminate definition of it. I looked that up. So the DSM-5R defines trauma as exposure to actual or threatened death, serious injury, or sexual violence. Mm-hmm. It also means like if you exposure to death, meaning like have you seen a dead body, and when they say like I thought I was going to die, you really have to parse that out and be like, okay, on a scale of 0 to 10, and then a lot of people say I knew I was going to die, like I really believed that was the end.
I had accepted it.
That qualifies. Yeah, exactly. So if somebody screeches in their car and slides on some ice and barely misses a pole, they may be like, whoa, that was really scary. Or they may be like, that was it. I was thinking of my wife as I was heading towards the pole. Those are two very different reactions to a life-threatening situation that you as a therapist have to say, okay, was that a trauma index event? So that's the DSM diagnosis. What Taylor was talking about was the real or lived experience of a person. And there's actually a theory called the shattered assumptions theory that I come in contact with a lot in when I was doing clinical work.
I was mentioning science? Dang it!
Yeah, you were. You didn't know this, but this shattered assumptions theory is your basic foundational beliefs about the world, yourself, others, or the world. And your experience shattered those beliefs, shattered those assumptions, and not only shattered them to where you're like, well, what do I do now? It changed them to be extreme and erroneous. Like I've said, in trauma, doesn't know the difference between a bonfire and a birthday cake. Because you were in a house fire, you can't have birthday cakes with candles on them because there's no difference between a bonfire and a birthday cake to your trauma. It's hot. It's going to kill me. And so there's the lived experience of like my assumptions were shattered. And like, well, what happened? Well, and it could be something that does not meet the DSM criteria. It's like, well, I skidded on ice towards a pole. All right. What were you thinking? It's like, I was thinking of getting out of there. I was just trying to leave. You're like, well, did you think you were going to die? Well, I don't know. But it changed my whole belief system around what I think about driving in a car. And according to the shattered assumptions theory, that fits. That could be a traumatic event. According to the DSM criteria, it does not. It may not. That's totally up to you as a therapist.
Interesting. The DSM for some folks, for some of us, is a pretty controversial book because, and this is here's another one of my hot takes. We'll file this behind
Yeah.
the ESA statement I made earlier. Hot takes by Taylor McCary. I think the DSM exists so that insurance will have to pay for therapy. It's purely justification for a medical model to be paid for, and I hate it.
Yeah, because now since we have HMOs, the management organizations, you have to justify it.
Yep. And then if you get something bad like anxiety, all right, well, there goes your life insurance premium. If you're even able to get life insurance anymore because you have anxiety or depression.
Yeah. And if anybody's curious why everyone gets diagnosed with adjustment disorder, a peek behind the curtain. Adjustment disorder is time sensitive. Adjustment disorder is like within 6 months of some kind of stressor, and it resolves after so many months of the stressor being removed. And so therapists like that diagnosis because it's time dependent and it can go away. And you can be diagnosed with adjustment disorder at one point in your life and it doesn't apply later in your life. So we use that one because it fits a lot of what we see when it comes to anxiety and depression. It's like, well, yeah, but you're anxious and depressed now, but it may not be a lifelong diagnosis.
Yeah. The counter to that, though, and this is my anti medical model rant again.
Anti-DSM,
yeah, is that if your insurance company says, "Oh, you've had adjustment disorder you've been working on for a year and a half, therapy's done." Well, but we're not done. Well, we say we are because you've met the diagnostic criteria and gone past it. This can't be adjustment disorder because you've gone for too long.
And then the therapist has to look at the diagnosis and what are we going to do here and work that out with the client.
How do we justify and
how we
it's
justify
dumb.
it? That's why Taylor and I both work outside of insurance.
Yeah, I mean, it sucks that I can't deny that it makes therapy more difficult for some people to access. The flip side of that, of course, is we have sliding scale and offer, prorated and free sessions for people because we're not trying to keep this in the hands of the rich and powerful. But that's why, because I don't want you to have to deal with the lifetime implications of being depressed once. I don't want therapy to come in or insurance companies to come in and say you're done. And then you get into clawbacks. There's a big thing happening, I think, in Minnesota right now, where Blue Cross Blue Shield is doing a bunch of clawbacks. And a clawback is where the insurance company, it's bad, is where the insurance company says, we paid you too much. For whatever reason, maybe they made a clerical error. Maybe it's because they reviewed the case and felt like it wasn't justified. And so you have these private practitioners who will have clawbacks for years and years. And the insurance company will say, the therapy that we paid you for is not justified. You owe us the money for all those sessions. And we're talking like
thousands of dollars.
I've seen like some group practices that have to pay back $500,000. They have 30 days to pay it back.
Oh my
and it's all because they'll say like you used CPT code 90837 instead of 90835. And like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. So now you're going to destroy my entire business because
that puts the whole community at risk, especially private practitioners. Oh man, I haven't heard about that. That's scary.
Yeah, clawbacks are garbage.
Yeah. I feel like we talked about a lot today. I kind of want to summarize what we hit on.
Sure.
Okay. So today we talked about weaponizing therapy. First off, therapy doesn't mean no discomfort. And therapy is not, as Taylor said, it's not weightless. It has no substance. There is a power dynamic between the client and the practitioner. And it
will change you if you do it right. And that change can be very uncomfortable. On
both sides. It changes on both sides. You notice.
Which just, I feel like I need to throw in too, which is not to say that it's bad and that the discomfort lasts. It's that it can be an uncomfortable process to go through the change, but it is worth it at the end.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And anybody who's been through it will attest to that. The hard discomfort that they've passed through, the hard questions they've been forced to answer that they've never been asked, the things that they hear themselves say out loud that they've only heard inside their heads. That can all be very hard things, uncomfortable things anyway. Yeah. So therapy, there's a power dynamic. So therapy by nature can be weaponized. It can be a weapon if you use it. If the practitioner uses it bad, if the clients use it bad with themselves or with each other. They'd say things like, you're being toxic, this is traumatizing me, you're gaslighting me. And things like, you need a therapist. Recently, a few people have come out in support of therapy. I feel like in general, the culture of America anyway is starting to support getting mental health help a lot more than it used to when I was a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And you have celebrities and people of substance endorsing getting help. Now, how you deal with having therapy speak thrown at you.
I guess we could probably clarify that a little bit more, because that's
Yeah.
a hard one to navigate. And it's not because we didn't talk about it, but I think that first and foremost, if someone is using therapy speak against you as a way to make you stop talking or to justify their bad behavior, I think the way that I would get around that, and I perhaps can get away with this easier because I'm a therapist, but I would say it sounds like what you're saying is I'm responsible for how you feel, which is not the case. I'm responsible for my actions, but like how you feel about it, that's for you to figure out. And my job is not to make you comfortable because you're uncomfortable with what you're talking about. You have to find a peace with what you're doing. And if you're telling me that I have to stop because it's making you uncomfortable, and we're not talking about we're not making jokes about, rape, right? We're not talking about big bad things.
Or deliberately, it's obviously you're deliberately trying to insult them or do something that's
exactly
unhealthy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If you
Just
say
being a
that shirt
person.
looks fat on you and it's really, you're a fat, ugly person, that shirt, it tells. That's, you're responsible for your actions. And that was deliberate. We're not talking about like, I feel bad because you're a dick, so that's my problem. Like, well, no, there's behaviors associated with that as well. But anyway, if the situation is like healthy and difficult, your feelings about it are up to you.
Yeah. And I think you're allowed to say, if you're talking to someone and they're trying to weaponize therapy, like you're traumatizing me, you're gaslighting me, you're allowed to say, I feel like you're misusing those terms in a way that's not fair. I feel like you're just trying to make me stop talking about what I want to talk about, and I'm not being rude about it. So don't do that.
Insulting is a very, very obvious thing, and people don't want to be uncomfortable, so they assume you can't say uncomfortable things. But if you're not being rude or insulting or mean, you're just being heavy.
Yeah. If it's part of a conversation, enter into a conversation. And if you don't know how to enter into a conversation, be curious about it. And if you are being open and curious and not being dismissive, and they're still telling you that you're being whatever, you're allowed to say, I actually don't think this conversation is going to go anywhere because I feel like you're using these terms inappropriately, and you're doing it in a way to just try and make me shut up. And that's not okay with me.
Yep. I've not been rude, and you're trying to shut it down. That's definitely something to say. Anyway, it's unfortunately more prevalent than I'd like it to be. I've seen it I don't get involved, but I actually see it in hallways of the hospital and places where I am, where people use therapy phrases as as backhanded compliments even. And you're like, you're not quite using that one right, but it's okay. I understand. I'm in this culture too. It's fine.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Well, did we do it? Have we successfully therapized?
Yeah,
the podcast world.
De-weaponized the podcast world. Absolutely. I think I've come to appreciate the fact that therapy is a hammer, and hammers can be used as weapons. It's a tool, and it's also a weapon. So I am Thor, basically.
Yes. Yes. Which version? Are you Norse accurate Thor, or are you Marvel Thor?
Oh man, I think I need to do more research on Norse accurate Thor, because I think he destroyed a whole race of people because he felt like it. Something like that.
I'm more thinking in terms of physicality, but yes, he was kind of a monster.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I don't want the wings on my helmet like the original Thor.
Norse accurate Thor is a very big, very hairy, very fat, angry man.
No, it's all right. I'll stay as Chris Hemsworth.
That's right, with your little Australian accent
and my hammer.
Nar.
Oh gosh, nar.
I will say, so Pete and I, we met on our mission, and
really derailed in the last bit.
Oh well, we met on our mission, and our mission president, who is the guy who's in charge of the missionaries' effort for that area, he was a guy from Australia. He is a guy from Australia named Peter Barr, who I love him so much. I love
if Peter Barr's
so
not
much.
in heaven, I want no part of it.
Exactly. I think he's still alive, actually.
Yes.
His wife did pass away, unfortunately, Jenny. Anyway, the point is, he was Australian, and so that's when I learned how to, the Australian accent is unique. He didn't say "nar," you "nar," but he did say "IK." He said, "Elders and sisters, we are here to do this work." IK and IK.
Okay, that's right. He owned a bunch of men's clothing stores, and so when I came into the mission, he would fix my collar.
Give you fashion advice.
Yeah, not fashion. Like, you're a young kid and you come in with this like sloppy suit, and he's like, okay, like he's a professional. He like fits men's clothes for a living, and it must have just killed him to watch these guys come in with these cheap suits.
It probably did, yeah. All right. Anyway, well, lovely talking to you, Pete.
Yeah, love you. Thanks for traumatizing me today. Traumatizing me.
See you. See you, dude.